if the superintendent has any opening remarks, he's always free to make them at the end,
actually, here he
the
is,
beginning, or the
actually.
middle.
He just joined. It looks like he just was able to get through.
Okay, great.
I got another device. So
Here he is.
thank God we're not too reliant on technology these days. So I'm
All
here.
right.
Sorry about
Welcome.
that, folks.
Okay, so looks like we have the roll call. We have a quorum. So I don't think we have to go through the virtual meeting protocols. Everybody pretty much knows. So we'll go to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, so item 4 is we've had that for opening remarks, if there are any. I see that the superintendent's on and the town manager, so.
I am nothing from me, John. Thank you.
Okay. Happy New Year.
Likewise.
Happy New Year. I would just like to say, Mr. Garish, just that obviously this is somewhat of a surreal moment for us here in the district, because just about a month from now is going to be the 6th anniversary of when we had that situation down on 500 South Street with the compromised roof. And again, by the grace of God, there was February vacation, and there were no students or staff in the building, and we got through that without any injury. To get to this point now is, again, I said surreal, but it's also an incredibly exciting time for us. I was just talking to Mr. Powers today about, I can't believe that we're going to be breaking ground pretty soon on something, because I really truly remember being in that building like it was yesterday, with the movers and our administrative team and all of the teachers, even though it was February vacation, and the community coming together to make that incredible move that we did within 3 days' time. And then, putting together, our committee that we have here, our school building committee, and working hard to get the vote to get this project approved. And now here we are. So I think it is a testament to what we are as a district, what we are as a community. We're all about our kids. We're gritty. We get the job done. And now it's time to get the real job done. And that is to get a school up there that's going to serve the best interest of future generations of Bridgewater Rainham students. So I'm incredibly excited, incredibly appreciative, and I respect all of you immensely. And I thank all of you immensely from the bottom of our hearts here in the district. And let's do it, man. Let's break this ground and let's get rocking.
All right. All right, I think we're ready. So we'll go to the OPM update.
All right, thank you, John. I'll share my screen. Just a quick presentation. Is there a nice cover sheet there? So progress report. We now have our new team member in Bacon Construction. I'll skip these top items, but we have accepted the award to Bacon Construction. Last SBC meeting, we voted to approve the award, and the school committee then recommended to the school committee to approve the award, and that has happened. We had a kickoff meeting with Bacon last week. They are finalizing their scope of services for the upcoming few months, and they're going to provide us with a look ahead schedule and logistics plan sort of as their next 2 deliverables. But we've already, in our discussions in the kickoff meeting and elsewhere, have gotten a good sense of what's to come, and that's going to come up in our schedule slide. Just major milestones here. I'm going to skip to the next slide that gives a little more detail. Here we're through our bidding and award phases. In construction, Bacon they got their notice to award right after the votes. Once they got us their signed contracts, their bond and their insurance, we were able to send them their notice to proceed, which happened last week. Part of that look ahead schedule is going to include their mobilization. We anticipate their mobilization the week of January 25th. What that means is trailers arriving, reworking the fence where needed, although we're lucky to have it already there. That was a good part of the demo phase. And then on to really the next activities will be setting up their erosion control, stormwater pollution prevention, and then starting the site work, which, the early activities on the site work now are the selective demolition of the foundations that are there. So upcoming meetings, we're here in meeting number 50, January 11th. Meeting number 51, we have not scheduled, and we wanted to have a discussion on day of the week going forward, and then the possibility of doing it in the second week of the month, just to get the timing right with the monthly payment submissions from the contractor. So I guess, John, we'll table that until a little later in the meeting. Keep going on the presentation.
Please do, yep.
I could read your lips. So budget update right now, I got my cursor on, is this is the GC bid value plus the alternates that were accepted. I have here, if you do the math, this math is now wrong. That's why I have these stars here. The point being, also I should note, this is the original project budget. The estimates have been coming in a little lower than this, as we remember. But the idea is we're going to shift funds into some contingency and FF&E as appropriate. We're finalizing that now as we finalize the PFA amendment. So I have that as TBD at this point. So here's the PFA budget. Reimbursement rate does not change. Right now we have pro-pays 1 through 15 submitted. We have been reimbursed fully for 1 through 13 at those values. That was actually it for our presentation.
So just to add, this is Joe, John, just to add on the overall project budget, MSBA obviously is going to reimburse 59, almost 60% of the cost, but it's going to be a lower cost obviously now because we obviously got better bidding numbers in. So reimbursement, percentage will be down, but the percentage won't change from what we've actually got it for construction. I mean, that's the good news about it. So it just means you have to borrow less, which is ideal for the town of Bridgewater.
So were there any questions on anything to do with schedule, upcoming activities, or budget going forward? Oh, sorry, there's a chat.
So I have, John, I have a question if I could.
Sure.
So I take it to mean, Joe and Mike, that the reimbursement rate stays the same and everything, basically everything is proportional. So we don't have to go through any kind of, advanced math to try to zero in on pretty much what the town MSBA balance is, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, great.
Kathy B, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just had a question about when we would expect to see those that updated amount, including sort of how that impacts the amount to borrow versus what we had originally thought.
Mike, do you want to take that or you want me to? I can.
Well, you too, because I'm actually not sure.
Okay, so over the next, so what we need to do is obviously we need to provide MSBA with an updated budget. And, just so we're crystal clear, any money that we move from the bid savings is on the district's, dime anyway. So we're going to end up, shifting some of it just to make sure that we have adequate coverage on any line item that we thought we might have been tight on. That should probably happen over the next 2 to 3 weeks. the month of February. I'm sure MSBA is going to want to see an updated overall budget. And so I think between John, myself, Mike, and Derek, we should probably schedule a quick discussion or, a Zoom meeting just for, what our thought process are, and then present to the committee for final approval for next meeting.
So John, can I ask a question to follow up on that?
Yep.
So that 59.8 number that we saw earlier, that's really not our reimbursement rate. That's like our marginal rate. There's eligible costs and max amounts per square foot, correct?
That's correct.
So if we drop our total construction cost by $12 million, the cost per square foot's going down. So essentially our effective reimbursement rate will go up, correct?
No. Your reimbursement rate will not, that's been set in stone, Pat.
Right,
will not-
the reimbursement rate is, but anything over a certain square footage, we were paying 100% of because it was not an eligible.
Correct. That's
So-
correct. You're
So
right.
if we're bringing that down at 100 cents on the dollar to what is actually reimbursable, our effective reimbursement rate for the town should actually go up.
The value of what the reimbursement should go up. That's correct.
So have we calculated now what our effective reimbursement rate is, so to speak?
No, we have not yet.
Okay.
And that will come at the next meeting, once you've done all that work that you were just talking about?
That's correct. We'll be able to give you a definitive, once we submit it to MSBA, they typically have a review, and they give us the final approval of the PFA budget, final PFA budget.
Because I think that, and I can't remember, I don't have it in front of me, but that 59.28 is of eligible expenses up to a certain square footage dollar value. So I think our effective reimbursement was less than 50. It was in the 40s somewhere, right?
That
Yeah,
makes sense.
I don't have it in front of me either right now, Pat, but I can look into that for you.
So that should tick up if you take 12 million off construction costs, because
Yeah, I mean, I think it should tick up, but wouldn't go above 59, right? It would
That's correct.
bring it closer to 59.
oh yeah, well, I mean, we'll never get to
Effective
59 because we'll never get to 59 because that's the max. But I
Yeah.
think eligible reimbursement costs were like 375 a square foot or something, and we were at like 5 something, weren't we? And now we're back close to that 375, so that we're actually saving almost 100%
That's
of
right.
that 125.
You just, it won't be 100% on the tax dollar. That you're right, Pat. You're right.
All right, that would be interesting to see now what our effective
Yeah.
reimbursement rate is compared to
What the
it was.
impact would be. Yep.
How close we can get to 59.
This is Christina. I just looked it up, and back before the project passed, we had estimated an effective reimbursement rate of closer to 42.
That's correct.
So that's where you're coming from. And yes, it'll be higher than that.
So John, if I could, and Christina, you kind of hit on what the reason I asked my initial question was. What I'd like to do is be able to get, some of the old assumptions out, published on the website next to what is now appears to be the actual numbers, so that people can understand the tax hit that we were projecting back prior to the vote. And now, due to the work of this committee and the great, results that came back, the tax result or the tax impact to the taxpayers, now. So Pat's point is a good one. We want to be able to broadcast some of that, what's really good news, I think.
Yeah.
So,
The
John-
tax impact will be a lot less. Absolutely.
Yeah, that is good news, Mike. And again, sorry, this is Christina. There are going to be some trade-offs. So effective reimbursement rate, understanding that MSBA still has caps. So you're still subject to the 333 per square foot, and you're still subject to the maximum of $2,400 per student for FF&E. So
8%
as
on
we
the civil.
move funds around and shift that around in the budget for what's the best project budget for this project, knowing you got a little bit of savings in the bid, then we'll have a better idea. Because it's not going to be, I mean, Pat, you're 100% correct that you're going to get a higher rate of percentage reimbursement on the square foot alone, but there are still some trade-offs to be looked at in that budget. So as Joe and Mike revise the 3011 that's going in for the PFA bid amendment, we'll have a better idea of where we land there. And Mike, I will work with Lil and Mike Dolan. We actually had a call about this the other day, talking about the packages that we're going to put out to the public, explaining where we landed with the bid, where our next steps are, talking about schedule and funding and so on.
So, Christina, that's a perfect segue for me. Mr. Dutton, one of the things we talked about for the website is that tax calculator. And I know we had one posted. I tried looking today. I couldn't find it. I don't know if it, with the new website, it got moved. But I'm hoping that we can get that tax calculator just for this project that we can link to from the website to your point about getting that information about savings out there. So that's was going to be part of my communications report, but since we're talking about it now, I'd like to just, if we could, make that a bit of a priority for the website.
No, that would be great, Mike. And I agree completely. I think, sort of for our purposes, putting it as a standalone without reference to the other projects we've got coming up would be a good thing.
Right, especially now that this project is approved and the other ones, as valuable as they are still work in progress.
Yeah.
So
I think Mark had a,
Yes. Thanks, John. I don't have the raised hand feature for some reason on my Zoom, so that's why I sent a chat. Is there any way also we can get this presentation like we used to get it ahead of time for the meeting, the one that you're presenting right now?
Yeah, we'll make that a part of what we do weekly.
Okay, thank you.
John, just a quick question,
sure.
and maybe Gene can answer this, but we're right around 136,000 square feet, right, Gene?
Yeah, I'll look up the precise, but it's right around there. Yes, Pat.
So roughly we're at like 367 a square foot, which is almost 100% eligible for reimbursement if it's 333. So we're only like $33 off. 300 and something bucks off.
Right.
So then if we save 12 million, almost all of that 12 million we had no reimbursement attached to it anyway, correct? So that 12 million only represents a portion of the 80 million project cost, but that was money that we were basically taking out of our pocket 100% because it was not eligible for reimbursement, correct?
Yeah, but there are going to be some Pat, there are going to be some costs associated with the overall budget that MSBA is going to max out on. Like site work is 8%. They're not going to pay any more than 8% for that. So when we do our recalculation, our submission, we'll be able to come up with an exact number for you.
Okay.
I just don't want to speculate it and then.
The good news is more than 40% of that savings is ours, even though our effective reimbursement rate is only 42%, and that'll drive the effective up, hopefully.
You're theoretically correct that because of the larger value of cost per square foot that we had estimated, a lot of the savings will be coming back on that side. But to Joe's point, there's a lot of intricacies in what the MSBA will and will not cover, and it's not always straight square footage caps or site works caps. There are just types of things that they don't cover. They consider it ineligible expenses. So it's hard to say that, the whole savings is X value of savings direct to the town. We'll have a better idea once they finish the revised 3011.
So it would be great if we could really see the detail of that, like really break it down so that we see all of those criteria, how that all impacts the savings number, what it means if we're moving some of that money into other categories, what that means in that particular category to how much we now save or don't save. I mean, I would like to see the real detail to dig into it.
Sure, Kathy, just any money that we're moving currently into any line item is going to be 100% on the town at this point. The MSBA doesn't turn around and say, hey, you had a windfall here, you can spend that kind of money and just, we'll help you out. They're going to reimburse us at the total amount based on, the bids that came in. We're moving some of the bid savings just on some, line items we're going to have discussions with, just to make sure we got coverage and that we're, if there were any, value engineering or cuts to the program, that we're funding it appropriately. That's all.
Yeah, I just want to make sure the optics of that too, that we're not putting
Right.
out there like we're saving all this money, but oh, we spent it in another place.
Yeah, but
And we didn't
that's
really
not-
need to, because we were really good about our bid, and we've been saying that for so long that we have a good estimate, we're really comfortable with it. So I just wanted to make sure we can understand all those numbers really clearly.
We'll articulate that very clearly on the form.
So Joe and Michael, I think you understand the committee wants to have that. The town manager wants to present it. The communication committee wants to get it out there. So I think you get the gist of the type of detail we're looking at. You have a certain amount of it you have to do the MSBA anyway. So let's try to put something together. But let me ask you about the timing. It's going to come to the committee before it goes to MSBA?
Absolutely.
Okay. So we'll plan to have that presented at the next meeting when we schedule the meeting, but we're going to get it ahead of time because numbers you need time to look at, right?
Yeah. You
So
need to
we can't
digest.
get it the day of the committee meeting. I'm just saying.
Understood.
And if it's not 100% polished, that's fine. People can review it and follow along, get the gist of it. And then, the numbers will end up what they are, but at least we'll understand how to follow it when we get to talking about it. Does that sound okay?
Perfect.
All right,
Okay.
any other questions or concerns, or can move on to design update?
If I could, Mr. Garish,
Sure.
I just wanted to say too, an important part of this, and I know Kathy's on, but we have been in talks with bond counsel about the rate we're going to get as well on the money borrowed, which is going to be considerably lower in terms of the interest rate than we were initially presenting to the public during our public hearings. And I know that on our next school committee meeting at the end of the month, the bond counsel will be attending the meeting and we'll be presenting that information for the school committee's approval. So I know that to Mr. Dolan's point about the kind of the calculator type piece, just so that folks remember that when we were presenting the project again, pre-COVID and everything else that was kind of going on, I think we used the number about 5% was the interest rate, and now we're looking, hopefully something in the mid to high twos.
Yeah. That's
So
right.
that's something that obviously should be conveyed to our stakeholders and taxpayers in Bridgewater as well.
So,
Derek,
John.
this is Christina. It was 3.5.
Well, it was 3.5 we used. Okay, so I think we're probably going to be in the mid twos. I don't want to speak for Kath, and I don't want to put anything out publicly that we're not ready to put out yet. But those are the talks that we've been having with bond counsel about where the rates are right now. Obviously, with everything going on, money's cheap to borrow. So there's not many silver linings with a pandemic, but coming in with a lower bid for construction and kind of getting a lower interest rate. Those are two things that I think obviously need to be communicated clearly to our stakeholders as well.
John, can I just ask Derek a quick question?
Sure.
So Derek, maybe I'm wrong, but at our last meeting, I thought Kathy had mentioned that the bond was being issued on the 20th of January.
Yep.
And we expected all the proceeds by the 20th of February. Is that still the case?
No, I believe the proceeds are somewhere around the first week in February. I forget if it's the 3rd or the 6th.
So the bond is being issued
Sold
on,
on the 20th.
all right, so that's still the case.
Yeah.
And then we should, all right, perfect, thank
School
you.
committee will accept it on the 26th, 27th.
All right, that's why I was confused. I didn't,
All the paperwork will be turned over, and then the following month, we'll get the proceeds.
all right, so so what the school committee is accepting on the 26th is the interest rate?
The bond and the interest rate.
So we'll know on the 26th what the rate is then.
We'll know on the 20th, but.
All right, great, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that time frame is still the same.
Mhm.
You'll know on the 20th and you'll formalize it on the 25th or whatever that date is.
The other thing too about the bond is that there may be a premium attached, which will mean it'll be less that we have to borrow. But I don't know what that amount's going to be at this point.
And just for the public, school committee is Wednesday, January 27th,
7th.
7 o'clock. Yeah, and it'll be via Zoom. And bond council will be in attendance, well, virtually will be in attendance. Correct,
Derek,
Kathy?
Derek, would you like one of us?
Bank financial advisor will be there. Yes.
Financial advisor, yep.
Derek, would you like one of us there just in case there's any questions related to any of the projects?
Yeah, that'd be tremendous. If we could have representation from our OPM and designers, that'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you for that, Joe.
All right, any more questions on the OPM update? All right, we'll be moving to the designer update.
Great. So, hi, everyone. So you all know John Bartecki. He's going to be and already has started leading our construction administration team. So I'm going to let him do the designer update because it's pretty much all about construction tonight, at least.
Okay, well, we've started our dialogue with the contractor. We're working out our logistics of getting information back and forth. I'm actually going down to their office tomorrow to sit with them, with the project manager and their, what they call an expediter, someone that handles all the paperwork, to finalize some details, make sure we're all ready to go. I expect post that meeting, within a few hours, I'll have correspondence, any RFIs, any submissions they've got all stacked up and ready to go. So we'll be into it 100% tomorrow afternoon, getting it done. So as they send you their schedule updates and their look aheads, they will coordinate with the OPM and us, and we'll get this thing rolling. We have a conformed set of documents that will be issued to the contractor tomorrow, I'm hoping, so that they can file for their permit, and then it'll be off to the races. And that's all I have, I think, unless someone has questions.
I do not have any questions. I don't see any.
Okay.
So is that it for?
And we're taking care of it.
All right, thank you. Is that it, Gene, then for the update?
Yeah, that's it. At some point, we'll get back together when we get, or we'll get together every month, but we'll be presenting when we get all the contractors' submittals on finishes. We had that finish committee, colors and patterns. So when we get all the contractors' submittals, what they're using for flooring, what they're using for carpeting, et cetera, we will here start to put together a finished presentation and work with that same subcommittee if it's okay with everyone. And at some point, I mean, this may be months down the road. We'll come back to the SBC with a recommendation so that the contractor can order materials. And then further down the road, so maybe a year from now, which sounds like a long time, but it'll go fast. We'll start working with people on the technology buyout and the furniture buyout. But otherwise, kind of with John in the lead, we're going to be answering questions and processing submittals and making sure you guys are getting what's in the documents. That's about it.
Gene, at tomorrow's meeting, you can ask for a submittal log just so you guys can let all your consultants and engineers know what they could forecast coming. Is that what the intent is?
No, not really. I mean, you guys have already asked them for that in the kickoff. I'm assuming they'll do their submissions per what you request and what's in the specifications, but I don't anticipate walking out of there with a submittal log. This is more of a quick meeting to make sure we've got the vehicle for communication completely organized and squared away.
Okay, great.
That there's a timeline for them to meet all these submittal deadlines, and I would not expect to come out of that meeting tomorrow with any of that. An understanding of it, but I don't expect to come out with anything. So
Great, thank you.
I think that's it, John.
Okay. Agenda item 7, discussion of the MSBA PFA amendment.
So John, what I'd like to do is, and I think it's our team portion of it, are going to get together over the next couple of days and put a draft amendment of the PFA together and probably submit it over to your group just for review prior to the next meeting. I think, we have some ideas of what we'd like to see, how it's going to be drafted, and some of our recommendations. At that point, you can go over it with the committee and determine whether it makes sense or not.
Okay. Any questions? All right. Item 8, financial subcommittee formation update. So I talked with Joe today about, just what we want this committee to be set up to do and how we generally should, form the committee. And I'm going to probably let Joe explain some of this, but what we're really talking about is a subcommittee that really doesn't have any approval authority. It's really a mechanism to have the less than the full committee deal with some of the, I don't want to say rapidly, but time sensitive information, and to have give a quick turnaround feedback to the design, the construction team, the OPM team, and then the contractor. I mean, everything will eventually come to the full committee for any action that's required. So before we get into details, Joe, do you have anything to add more on the overview and what, you see the benefit of that subcommittee being?
John, thank you. John and I had a long conversation about this, and it's not what the bottom line is. The building committee is still going to make the final decisions related to any changes, associated approvals for this project. What the subcommittee does is it actually puts a group together to actually understand some of the dynamics ahead of time that might be challenged with any scope of this project. And what it does is we're going to actually explain a lot of the process for each of the changes and why they're in place, and then monitor it against it, make sure it's not like there's no effect to the overall schedule. In the event that it is, they're going to go through it. They're going to hear both sides of the reasons why we're doing what we're doing, or why there's scope change, or why the general contractor or file subcontractor is looking for some type of change, and then be able to clearly articulate the reasons behind it, and then come up with a recommendation to the formal committee for approval. And what it does is it gives the general contractor a little insight that, the direction that we're moving in and not delaying the schedule in any shape, way, or form. So, as much as they are going to look it over and, formally, amongst the small committee, make a recommendation, the formal vote will come from the overall committee.
So Joe, in our discussions, you gave a good example. They're excavating and whatever, something comes up where they got to move the
Drainage line,
a
right?
drainage structure in the parking lot, and there's a cost associated with it. Let's say it's not a significant cost. That the team would need feedback so that they would know how to proceed. That would be different than us making a decision, say, on the final satin finish for Derek's mahogany lined office. We would definitely kick that to the full committee, but yeah. But seriously, it's just a mechanism because it's a big project and it's going to move and it's got to stay on schedule. So I think to get into particulars, we were talking, it's generally for items that wouldn't be more than 25,000, right, Joe?
That's correct.
And then this subcommittee would, and anything that just, is too significant, even if it's beyond the 25, if it would involve a delay or anything like that, it would just, the committee would just defer it to the full committee review. And then we could do the legwork ahead of time just to get all of that information together and in order for the committee to be able to be informed and act on it timely.
So John, you hit it right on the nose. The bottom line is that the architect and engineers are going to put together any, projected change orders and all of the backup associated with it. We're going to vet it well before you guys actually sit down and review it. At that point, once that happens, if there is an item that, we feel that needs to go to the committee for further discussion, we'll call a special meeting just so that we're not delaying the schedule, and we'll just call a meeting so that everybody's on the same page with it. But what we'll end up doing is there'll be a architect recommendation for whatever that change might be or credit. And then there'll be a review from the OPM, which CHA will give their opinion on it. And then the formal recommendation from that subcommittee would go to the formal committee. So that's basically the steps in the process. It's all to keep a constant flow of construction, because when schedule starts to get delayed, that's when costs start to get, accumulate. So that's what we're trying to avoid.
The committee, this subcommittee, we're thinking will meet off schedule, obviously, from the full committee. So let's say 2 weeks, we'd be 2 weeks ahead so that we could act on things, review things, and have them ready for the agenda for the full committee. So does anybody have any questions on what this subcommittee would be doing or any suggestions to do it differently? Then we can get into how many people and who wants to be on it. All right. So we were thinking, to be effective, we want to have a small group. I know personally I'm interested in being on that subcommittee. We definitely would want Bob Pacheco to be on as the facility director and really the main district representative for what gets built. We're thinking, because there aren't any there's no obligation. This committee's not going to obligate anything that, in terms of voting. I don't see that it has to be, Bridgewater voting members. But we're thinking, 4 or 5 people, maybe one of those being an alternate, just so we can have a quorum to take these votes of recommendation. Any thoughts, suggestions? Anybody want to be involved?
John, how often do you think we would actually meet?
Okay, good question. So we're thinking that we would schedule this on a regular standing, whatever day we pick. And then if the meeting's not needed, we would just cancel it.
So it'd be once a month, Pat.
Be once a month out of
But,
cycle.
but only if things come up.
Yeah, we'll schedule it regularly for whatever day of that month, but if there's nothing to discuss on any PCOs, we just won't have them, we'll cancel it.
Okay.
I just want to set the day of the month so that we're in a sequence and a process of a habit of getting together and going over the documents. I just don't want it to prolong 2 months out and then change orders start to accumulate and then, work starts to slow, that's all.
John, I'll be interested, but if you have too many people, I'll yield to somebody else, so it's fine.
Okay.
I think I've mentioned that in passing in the past, but I'm happy to do it. I think Kathy serves as the Finance Committee's sort of representative on the committee, and I don't know if she'd be willing or able to do it, but if she is, I think that would be perfectly appropriate too.
John, this is Harsh Rebello. I'm happy to serve on this as well.
Kathy, I'm happy to do it. I was just thinking, like looking back to when we were looking at the fencing issue, and I think the people who have like more true construction experience have more input to give. So I would yield my seat to someone, a Harsh or a Patrick or whoever as well. I mean, I can certainly look at the financial implications when they come before the full committee.
Okay.
And Gene, part of that, I would, John, I would want Gene or someone, the CA from the architect, but obviously they'd be presenting the changes and document behind it. And these aren't just change orders related to construction. It could be owner initiated, it could be inspector initiated, so there's a number of different change orders that can, accommodate some of the requests that come in, so.
No problem. We expect to be part of any change. So
Appreciate it, Gene.
Yeah.
So Derek, if I could ask you, we definitely want Bob, obviously, on the committee. Is there anybody else you definitely want represented? I mean, it's open for anybody to attend, but as far as, the members that would do the work.
Well, to Kathy's point about, because I was thinking, our Kathy, Kathy Macedo. But to Kathy's point about, and you could tell me, John, with this kind of being more of, your business and through your lens, does it behoove us to have more people who are the financial expertise or more of construction expertise? And I know what you're stating with obviously having Bob Pacheco as part of that. I just don't know if you're looking for more of the construction side, the actual building, or the financial side. With it being a financial committee, I would say if it were, where you needed someone who had the lens of the finance piece, I would say, and I hate to offer her up because I know she's out so much, but Kathy Macedo, because she's going to be dealing with all, she already deals with the pro pay and everything else that's involved with MSBA reimbursement. So.
All right. So Derek, that's a good point. We're calling it a financial subcommittee. Maybe that's not the best term. I'm not discounting the financial part of it, but I'm thinking more of the construction mechanics part of how you keep a construction contract moving.
Gotcha.
So John, if I could just elaborate a little bit, Derek, you made a great point. We're going to be putting, and we're tracking it appropriately from the contingency. Any and all changes are going to have, a tracking mechanism and a plus or add depending on the impact to it. So I think Kathy is going to be getting documentation on a monthly basis, just indicating any cost impact to this project. And the whole purpose behind that is just so that everybody in the committee knows that these are the issues or concerns that are coming up. These are the cost impacts that might accommodate part of it. And this is the impact to the overall budget and schedule. So it's more construction based, and it's in John's point, he's correct, where it's probably not so much of a financial committee, it's more of a change order building committee, and it's to discuss a credit and or an add to this project, and then it's just vetting it and then making the recommendation for approval to the main committee for discussion. That's what it comes down to.
So if that's the case, I would say more Bob Pacheco than Kathy Macedo. And John, obviously I'll be working closely with Mr. Pacheco and, Kathy.
Right.
So if you needed me there to be part of, I know I'm not a voting member, but I would always be happy to obviously join you as well. So, but if through Joe's explanation, I think maybe it's more of a Bob Pacheco than it is Kathy Macedo. Both
Sure.
wonderful people, by the way. Wonderful, hardworking people who I adore. So,
Absolutely.
I agree. More Bob.
And I'm going to be bending Kathy's ear, I'm sure, as we move forward, just making sure the numbers are all jiving the way we're anticipating them. So she'll have involvement on it, but I don't think, I think her expertise is needed somewhere else rather than this meeting right now.
So Kathy, let me just say, this isn't a committee to cut anybody out. It's to keep it at a smaller group so they can be nimble, right? So, it's totally up to you.
That's
If you
fine.
wanna-
I already feel I'm doing a lot with the project and keeping up with the pro pays and, tracking all of that and all of the billing and, so I think financially I've got my handle on it, it's, with the bidding and all of that for the bond, and that keeps me pretty busy. So if
Okay.
you don't need me for that, that's fine. I'm not hurt.
All right. And then anything that would come to this subcommittee that would be significant, obviously you would be alerted through the other project channels that already are there.
Mhm.
This isn't meant to circumvent any of that. Again, it's just to facilitate.
And just so you know, I don't have a problem, calling Gene or calling Mike McNulty or anybody to get updated information, and I do that periodically.
Good.
So, I don't have an issue with that either. So if it doesn't come to me, I go look for it.
There you go.
So.
Okay, so.
Hey, John,
based
this
on-
is Bob Pacheco.
Hi, Bob.
I am happy to serve on that, so no worries here.
Well, we're going to make you.
I
Do it
know.
anyway.
I'm going along quietly.
Bob, I think
Okay.
your expertise would help.
Well,
Okay, is there anybody else interested and if you've already reached out to me, forgive me, I just have lost track.
John, I could be an alternate if necessary, if needed.
Okay, so right now I've got myself interested, Pat, Bob, Harsh, Mark is an alternate, let's just say 1, 2, 3, 4. So that would be 5. And then Kathy.
So like I said, I'm happy to step back and just perform the role as part of the broader committee. It's up to you. I don't want to make it too large.
Okay. Well, why don't we just put you in for now? So we're talking 2, 4, 5, 6 people. I think
That's fine.
that's fine. And, none of us are going to want to spend any extra time on meetings, especially when they're Zoom calls. So I think that would be good. That would be an effective way to process outreach and coordination with the committee.
And John, what we would do is we would put a summary package together, and that would go to the full committee prior to the meeting, so they had time to digest it and vet it, and or ask questions of the team, whether it's Gene, Mike, myself, or yourself, or you. So.
Okay, so if we assume that for the moment, then, so what do we have for, we're talking about having a standing meeting. With that makeup, is there any issue with quorum or, because I'm a voting member,
are you under your quorum level? If you're under 7, I
Yeah.
think you're all right, right?
Yeah, I think it's 8, right, Josh?
So Joe, is that an actual, that's a voting committee, so it's not like a working group?
They're not actually voting. What they're doing is they'll be recommending. So they should be in agreement to recommend to the full committee. The full committee is the voting committee.
So I guess what I'm saying is it, does it fall under open meeting, or is it a quorum?
You know what? We're gonna post it. I think we post it regardless so that there's no trouble. I mean, I've had it where, if someone else showed up and for whatever reason, just because they wanted information, I'd rather post it and have it available to me than to run into a glitch where, we get a hand slap for it. So we'll figure that out. And I think, John, we were thinking about days. We could probably meet the last week of the month for that group, and then the second week of the month for the big group, because by then the requisition will be ready to be reviewed and any invoices appropriately.
Okay, so that's a good point. Because the timing is part of the motivation for doing this.
Correct.
That whole cycle of processing payments and requisitions. All right, so that's 6 members. I don't know if I'm using the right term. Like Dolan usually keeps me honest. It's an advisory subcommittee.
Yep.
Does that sound right?
That's perfect.
Okay. Okay. So generally that'll be, we're targeting that for the 3rd week of the month. Or did you say the last week?
Yeah, we could do the last week because the pencil rack is due the last week of the month. So if we get the pencil rack, the requisition probably through the signature portions and review would be ready the end of the 1st week. So the 2nd week would be our building committee meeting. So if we met, a Tuesday or a Tuesday or a Monday or Tuesday, the last week of each month, and I would just send out a Zoom meeting invite and, cancel it if we don't have any to talk about, in this project with this team and the drawings the way they've done, we shouldn't have any changes, but in the event that we do, we'll have it scheduled, ready to go.
Okay.
So is there a day of the week that works better for the 6 that have volunteered or had their arm twisted?
So before we say that, let's talk about time. This committee, the information that we've had to process up to this point, has required the meetings to, take quite a bit of time. So I know I favored starting earlier so that we weren't finishing up at 10:30 at night. And then everybody has to, when we're meeting in person, has to make their way home for the consultants. So I would be interested in, again, barring any conflicts with other things, like a 7 o'clock meeting, because we're really thinking that this is going to be like a 30-minute or an hour type meeting, right, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, the ideal situation, John, is Gene and his team will be providing you the change order documentation ahead of time. So you'll have time to actually look at it and get an understanding of it. Gene during the meeting would would go change order by change order and there shouldn't be a lot. I mean, Gene, there shouldn't be a lot every month. I mean, if we stay on top of it on a monthly basis, there should be only, 2 or 3 to have discussions about, and those should go fairly quick. So I don't see this being more than an hour at any time.
Okay, let me ask the superintendent, when we're past the pandemic guidelines, do we know if committees will then again have to meet in person? Because this would be a perfect one where we could continue the Zoom meetings. What should we be planning for?
I'm not hearing anything
changing
from like the department. I mean, from the higher ups and at DESI that, that you can't use this forum, or I think that may be more through the AG's office, whether we can continue to use this forum. I would say that I think it, again, we're always looking for silver linings of, the pandemic. I mean, these mediums, I think, are becoming obviously, a viable choice for many, organizations, and I can't see why the utilization of this post-pandemic would be an issue unless the AG's
Okay.
office sees it differently.
Yeah, I don't see anything changing before the end of this year, John, so.
All right,
think
so it's
you're-
reasonable for us to plan for what we know and,
Yep.
okay. All right, so I don't know if we need to do it now. If everybody has an idea of when they can or cannot meet, the 6th. Maybe we can, Bob, what works best for you on a Monday or a Tuesday? Early
Actually,
evening, as
early
opposed to-
evening. Yeah, early evening would work best. Just because I start really early.
Yeah.
Usually like on the road about 4:45. So yeah, early in the evening and Tuesdays would work best.
John, can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Monday and Tuesday nights are generally like council and FinCom and different things like that. If we're going to do a Monday or Tuesday night, is there any way, it kind of goes against what I said to you earlier today, like a 6 versus a 7. I mean, I'm just the alternate anyway, so it doesn't matter, but usually the government meetings, the school committee meets the Wednesday night.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know if Thursday night would be a possibility. I'm just asking.
Well, on the time, Bob, it sounds like 6 would be better for you too.
Yeah, definitely 6 would be best.
Okay.
John, you could even do 5:30 like we do now on
Yeah,
Tuesday.
5:30 works as well, either way.
Okay. So let's stay with, just for the discussion, Tuesday at 5:30.
Sounds great.
5:30/6, just say generally. So does that work? So that works for Pat, Mark, Bob, myself. How about you, Harsh?
Sorry, trying to unmute myself. No problem. That's fine.
Okay.
So we're
Well, I
talking-
think it's nice too, John, that we twisted some arms. If Kathy is on and I'm on and Hash is, if we're all on, if a couple of us can't make it, we still have 4 or 5 people, so that's good.
And the first one wouldn't start, John, until the 23rd. So you're talking the 23rd of February
Okay,
would be
good.
the first meeting.
Okay.
All right, well, why don't we go with that and just see how it falls out? That sounds good to
Yep.
me. Okay, we want to talk about the regular committee meeting, but I guess we can talk about that now unless we need to do it under public comment, since it wasn't an agenda item. What does
Well,
everybody
you're
think?
setting your meeting schedules. I think it would be fair to speak about, because it's both committee meetings hinder on how you're going to process the requisition and the construction project moving forward. So.
Yeah.
All right.
Item number 11.
Oh, I'm sorry. Looked right over that, Michael. Thank you.
All right.
All right, so any more questions on the financial, maybe? So why don't we agree to what that title really is? I know, Joe, you threw out something like the change order.
Basically, it's a advisory committee for change orders, and that could be a credit or a cost,
All right, how about scope? Is this too broad? Scope change? Advisory subcommittee?
I like that better than change order, because that
Yeah,
means
I
we're not
know.
spending any
Sounds
money.
good.
Yep.
If we were all contractors, we'd love to hear change order as the main topic of the meeting. Let's talk about this change order. All right. Okay, any more on that? And we'll move on to item 9, if not, and then we'll get back to item 11 on the full committee meeting time.
Change the name to the no change order committee then.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
John, did you, do you have on the agenda about like the OPM's ability to forecast a change in the event, schedule or the criteria mandated it like immediately? You know what I mean? So in the event, I'll give you an example. In the event we're working forward and, we're excavating the site and we hit a manhole cover that we didn't, a manhole structure that we didn't anticipate, and we need to have it fixed right away, and there's a cost associated with it. If we waited to get to the full committee and subcommittee and the full committee, it may be 3 weeks out, and the work is going to affect the overall schedule for that particular project. Committees in the past and the projects that I've done over the last 20 years, they've given leniency to the OPM not to exceed. We would notify everybody of the circumstance, but there's a dollar value of a set figure that we set amongst the committee that the OPM had authorization. If it's schedule driven and it's vetted and reasonable, they would make a decision to move forward on a time and material basis, and then go in front of the committee to 3 weeks later, whenever it is.
So I understand what you're asking. Is that something that you can put together and we can discuss at the next full meeting?
Absolutely. I didn't know if you had it on the agenda. That's all.
No, I did not.
Okay, that's fine. I'll put it together, and I'll put a couple of scenarios together so the committee has a full understanding as to why I feel it's necessary. That's all.
Okay.
And Joe, you'll list sort of the criteria that would take place in? Like you
I'm
said,
sorry.
here are the 5 things that have to happen in order for us to do this.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right, item 9, report of the communication group.
Yeah, we've got a few things this month, all related to the website. We're going to be updating the FAQs. We're going to put some more information as plans come together for site access, the sediment control, the weekly site cleanup, the site delivery schedule, how that's going to work, where they'll make deliveries, work hours and days, which goes to a construction schedule. Weekly calls will continue. We'll make sure we put that on there. Job meetings on a weekly basis, and our continued monthly meetings, and now that scope committee meeting as well. We're going to continue to use the website's email address as our main mode of communicating public. We're not going to change that at that point. And we will link to the tax calculator from the town's website. The one last thing, I know we've mentioned COVID a couple of times tonight, and that it's been a silver lining and a blessing. But as we come into construction, we want to make sure we are managing expectations. And COVID may become that double-edged sword again. If we have COVID outbreak on the construction site, that will have an impact on schedule. Yeah. And we want to make sure we are sharing that information early so people have an understanding that, yes, we are right now on time, under budget, but with COVID, anything is possible. So we're going to work with Christina, who's been great, on some language around that so people have a full understanding of it, and there's no real true surprise about what that impact might be on us and that schedule for.
Michael, the only thing I'd like to add is that in that communication outlet, we do want to reach out to the abutting neighbors and give a contact information on many of those in case there's any infractions that might happen during the construction. So we'll provide, Christina and I will provide those telephone numbers so that in the event that happens, we'll also probably put a contact information on the gates in the front so that people are aware if there's something that goes on.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. That's good. We talked about that and wanting just that phone number to start just to the abutters. We didn't want necessarily the site person to have to deal with the phone calls from everybody in town. But we wanted to pay close attention to the abutters and get them that number. They would be first on the list to receive that.
And if I could jump in for 1 second, Mike, I think Mike's point, Joe, is that there may be a lot of questions from the general residents about the project. And what he'd like to make sure is that the building committee is actually receiving those and addressing those, not just the GC. And so, they just don't want it to slip past the building committee's awareness. So we want to make sure that we're funneling the right questions to the right parties.
I think that's great. One of the other things that I would recommend maybe is having, maybe a Zoom abutters meeting just to let them know that the project is kicking off, and just so that you take the animosity out of anybody. All of a sudden you got a lot of noise and equipment happening in there, and the people say, I didn't know it was coming. You know what I mean? And even though the project's been bid and communicated through a web page, but I think, maybe we hold one, and a lot of times the general contractor will actually attend that Zoom meeting as well. So they get to see a face with a name,
I like that idea. Mr. Dutton, we'll work with your office again to get that list, that complete list, if that's all right.
Yep, we'll set it up maybe in February, because they're going to be mobilizing. Once they mobilize, everybody's going to come out of the woodwork wondering what's going on. That's all.
Absolutely. Kathy, you had a question, but before that, I would just want to add, we did also receive a public records request through the town manager's office for the bid results. So his office has sent that off to Mike McNulty to respond to, but we'll be posting the bid results on the website as well. So as people email the town manager in his office, he can point them right to that. So it's there for the world to see, that we're not hiding anything, and we're above board. So, Kathy, did you
have that up? Do you know
what?
when you'll have that on?
I don't yet, Kathy.
Okay, because we get calls in the office too, and I've referred them to Mike. But,
Yep. Okay.
all right, let me know when it is, then
I will
let folks know.
Yep.
So if I can just jump in here for 1 second, public records requests are usually kind of a more formal request. And Mike and Lil and I did talk about posting information about the results, but it kind of depends on what they're looking for. A lot of requests will come from like labor unions or union reps in general, and they're looking for more than just the numbers. They might be looking for copies of the actual bids. They want to break it down, make sure that everybody ticked off their boxes. And you'll continue to get public records requests throughout the life of the construction of the project, including certified payrolls and a lot of other information as we go forward, because it's technically public information. Some of this information needs to be redacted before it's released to the public. And information also needs to be documented and controlled as far as how it gets out and whether people have to pay for it to be reproduced. This is kind of like a formal thing that there's actually state laws around. So I think we should circle back and talk about the release of public records going through a single party like the school department or the town versus posting things to the website. That would be my recommendation. I don't know, Mike and Kathy, if you guys want to weigh in.
Christina on the formal process. I definitely, when we get something's labeled a public records request, we have a very specific tracking process internally, so that we make sure that we've got all the information that's actually been requested and the package that's been sent to the requester. Rarely do we do we do an estimate, or rarely do we charge people for it. If it's an enormous volume of material, then definitely we will let them know that there's a charge, and we'll estimate the charge as required by law. But I think I don't, having said that, and Christina's right, it'll be labor unions. They'll want the certified payroll records and frequently and all of that. But just in terms of posting the bids on the website, I think that, that's an easy one, because, it's often plan houses or other contractors that just want to see where they ranked in the scheme of things. So if that could be posted on the website, I think that's easy. Those generally aren't official public records requests. Those are just people wanting to know the results.
Kathy Blaze, you had a question?
I did. I just had a question about the COVID piece. And I just wondered if we need to have some conversation with the Board of Health or the town HR to talk about what are the policies and procedures, and do we have certain instances where the town needs to be notified? Are there any rules about when someone can return to work if they've had COVID and been on the site? Are there any of those kinds of things that we need information from the contractors or anybody else? And should we make sure that we really understand those rules and have them clearly communicated before it starts?
Joe and Christina jump in here, but one thing, Kathy, you're like a plant. That was perfect. The contractor is by law mandated to do a COVID plan. So in that plan, we'll discuss those things that you talked about. But Joe and Christina, I don't know if you have more to add to that, but that's...
Mike, you hit it right on the nose. They're required, and we're going to make sure that that submission from the general contractor is provided. There'll be a plan that the CDC actually requires them to actually submit on. So, and there's guidelines that Kathy's, she alluded to them, who gets notified, how they get notified, and there's certain steps that they have to follow. And we actually are going to carry on the meeting minutes on a weekly basis, the conversation of COVID. So we'll know, on a daily basis what's going on. There's requirements from the general contractor of not only sign-in slips, temperature readings, stations where they have to actually periodically check in with the superintendents there. So there is protocol out there that each project has to follow and maintain.
That's all I've got, John.
All right, thank you. Okay, item 10, approval of previous December 14th, 2020 meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve. This is Mark.
Matt Rushton, second.
All right. Josh?
Yep. All right. John?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Art? Art still here?
Yes, did that come through now?
Thanks. Matt?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Lillian?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Thank you. The minutes were approved.
Thank you. Okay, item 11, the next school building committee meetings. So as we discussed before, we're looking to better align with the whole payment processing schedule. So it sounds like the second week of the month would be better. We can throw out the same timing, time of day discussion if that helps. But what are members thinking in terms of, I think we're talking a Monday or a Tuesday still, at least to start. Mark, did you have something?
Yeah, I'd love to see us stick to Mondays, and I'm wondering if we can go back to the time that we had before we started with COVID, either 6:30 or even 7 o'clock, because the meetings aren't as long. And, you know, if people are still traveling for work, if they are, you know, they can get home, you know, grab a quick bite and then have the meeting. I hope they're not going to be on Tuesdays, because Tuesdays are like a train wreck in Bridgewater for meetings.
Okay, what do others feel on the day, let's say?
I would agree with Mark. You know, obviously Tuesday would be difficult for both the town manager and myself to attend.
Okay, how about,
I would agree with Mark and Matt. Tuesdays are usually our budget subcommittee meetings or policy subcommittee meetings. So Monday would be a better choice.
do you have something, Joe?
Yeah, Gene, you wouldn't have any problem, you know, getting the requisition the last week of the month and having the final rec ready to go the end of the first week, correct?
I wouldn't think so.
Okay, I just want to make sure that that we have the invoices to be able to discuss and approve for that. You know, like looking at February 8th is a Monday, John. I'm just saying that, you know, that first week of February, all of the documents would have to be, and I would expect them to be sent out early to the committee, so they had the documents in front of them to review electronically, and then we could have, you know, a good, clear, candid discussion about the approval of the invoices and any information that we're providing for a update. So as long as we're able to meet those obligations, I think that Monday, the second Monday of the month would work for everybody.
All right, so does the second Monday of the month not work for anybody? All right, and how about time?
Sorry, Mark, I like an earlier time. I mean, even if we're gonna go back, I would say 6:30 better than 7.
Okay, and I think in round terms, Joe and Gene, and, you know, unless there's the routine business that we should anticipate, that's probably an hour meeting at the
Yeah,
most.
if we go over an hour, we got too much we're talking about.
And then if there's unusual circumstances, well, that's what the committee is here for, right? So,
Yeah, we'll have building committee meetings, and I think the longer ones will be when we start to discuss finishes, dedication plaques, that type of stuff. I mean, the building committee meeting should be relatively fluent.
okay. So how about if we say we get started, I mean, we can always change this, but do we want to shoot for Monday then at 6:30? Does that sound okay to everybody?
Yeah.
All right, and then we'll see how it goes. So that means the next meeting will be, for the full committee, would be February 8th at 6:30.
So our expectation is that first week of February, that Thursday, I'd like to see the documents sent out electronically to everybody. So we'll get them to your hands, John? Is that, and you'll distribute them? Is that how it works? Or you want us to just send it to everybody?
Yeah, I don't have a problem if you send it to everybody.
Okay. So
Why?
Gene, we're shooting for Thursday, the 4th, to try to have the documents ready to go. Your report, our report, the requisition, everything. That gives them Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday prior to the meeting Monday night to kind of look it over. Is that enough time for everybody?
Yeah, Kathy Macedo, does that work for you? You got a business day to look at it at least? Because you'll be writing the checks, right?
And
Are
if you're
those
not happy
big
with it, you
checks, are
don't
the
have to
checks
approve it.
bigger? Are they bigger? Do you have to use a big pen? You're muted.
Forgot. They need to be to fit all that in there. They're gonna be big checks.
Okay,
But yeah,
Okay.
I can do it in a day.
okay, good. And, you know, I just know from experience that all of the numbers to, you know, including dollars and cents, all have to line up. So I would just offer to Jean and Joe that, you know, for what we're doing, if it's, rather than delay it, if there's just something that can't be filled in, maybe you just send it, call it draft, and then, you know, the committee can be updated with the documents they have to actually vote on it that night, you know? Because
Yep.
most of it, what we're gonna look at is we just want to get an understanding, and it's not really so much the exact number, but I know the numbers have to be exact
Yep.
to actually be processed. Does that sound okay?
Yep, perfect.
Okay, so unless there was any other discussion on the meeting, well, I do have one thing. So we'll come up with a revised agenda because it won't follow the same one that we have been using because we're into construction. So that, you know, we'll work on that. I'll work on that with Joe. You know, you'll see it when we post the meeting notice, and then we can talk about it if anything needs to be adjusted. If that sounds okay. All right. Item 12, public comment.
Gene, I'm gonna go check for fires.
Are you?
I'll be in tomorrow afternoon.
All right. What are you doing in the morning?
All right, I don't see any.
Bacon.
Okay. Next item would be adjourn, and I just want to thank everybody for,
John, I'm sorry, it's Mike. I forgot something
Oh.
under the communications report.
sure.
We have talking about some type of groundbreaking ceremony.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're looking at some kind of modified option there, working with Christina on that. And that will obviously, like I said, be modified because of the restrictions we're under, but just so folks know that that is on our radar and we're looking at it. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that in my notes. So,
Mike, we'll probably schedule that in March when the weather gets a little nicer. That'll give the contractor to kind of mobilize, get the site contractor on board. We'll get a pile of dirt so we can have everybody 6 feet apart and like kind of just do it. You know, we'll figure out something.
no, I actually do it with snow, not dirt.
Okay, that's good to know, though, Michael. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
All right. If that's it, then item 13, adjourn. Just need a motion.
This is Lil, motion to adjourn.
Matt Rushton, second.
Okay, John,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Harsh,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Lillian,
Yes.
Pat,
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion was approved. The meeting is adjourned.
All right. Thank you,
everyone.
everybody.
Night, everybody. Thanks.
Good night.
Night.